Hi, I'm Laurie1, and if you're here, you've heard about feminine power flow. And you might be wondering what it's all about. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. I have a virtual training starting in a couple of weeks, and I'd really love you to join me. And even more exciting, I have a Feminine Power Flow 3-day workshop also coming up. But what's it all about? First, let me tell you a little bit about it. So, you know all those messages that women have coming at us that we're supposed to be sexy and appealing to our man, nurturing and caring to our children? And when we go to work or we're in the business world, we zip that all up, hide our sexuality, our emotions, and we get into the masculine defined system of business. It's only been 30 or 40 years that women have been stepping into the masculine defined world, the business world that men defined. And we're really adaptable because some of us have been very successful. But I think there's more to it. Prior to that, we were nurses, secretaries, teachers, and of course, wives and mommies. These were all nurturing, caring roles. If you think back to our ancestors, the men went out hunting and women were gathering. But not only were they gathering food, but they were gathering the community. Think about the wide range that we had back in those days. And really, our operating system hasn't evolved that much. We were able to gather food, and we knew what food was poisonous and what was edible. We knew who to share it with, and we took care of our children. We might be taking care of the elderly or the sick in the community. And if a saber-toothed tiger came into camp, we could beat that thing off. So we have this really wide range that we can access. And my question is, what would it be like if we really stepped into that? Instead, a lot of times we feel like we have to compartmentalize all these different aspects of our lives. And when you're constantly picking up one thing and dropping it, and picking up another and dropping it, it kind of makes you feel scattered. So, and we have such a range that we can access, and we have this amazing adaptability and capacity for bringing community together. And many times we're just not accessing that. So here's a little example. So I met this woman named Anya a couple of years ago, and she had a business that she loved. She was raising 2 children and she was married. And I said, wow, Anya, you have it all. She was just like this bubbly, energetic, super happy person. And I was like, Anya, my God, you have it all together. How did you do that? And she said, it really wasn't always like this. There was a time that I had a job that I hated. I wanted to divorce my husband, and my kids had allergies, eczema, and asthma so bad I really just wanted to tear my hair out. And I wanted to run away. But of course, I couldn't do that. So the only thing I could really do, she said, was to look inside myself. So what would that be like? Well, she said she didn't divorce her husband, but she quit her job. And she rekindled the relationship with her husband. And her children are now allergy symptom free. And life is just, she's tapped into the ease and the abundance of life. I truly believe that that ease and abundance is out there. So I did some research, and I've been interested in this topic. Nobody's really talking about it in this way. And I've been researching this for a long time. In 1994, I bought a book called Working from the Heart, because I thought there's got to be a different way. Because I know everybody wants the same thing. They just want to be happy. And they want to feel safe and secure and like they belong. But we get so busy, we forget about that. So how do you bring that into your everyday and then start to expand and live bigger? So I developed a formula. It's called the Feminine Power Flow Formula. And I'd really love you to join me on virtual training and perhaps the event as well, where you look at yourself with different lenses. And let me tell you about it. So get a notepad right now, because I'm going to go through some of the high points, or at least some of the starting points. I don't have time to go through the whole formula that I developed, but you can get started. And then if you feel called, you can join. For those of you who feel called, you can join the virtual training and or the 3-day seminar. And I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. So the first piece is really to look at the roles that you play. As I mentioned and told the story of Anya, you can think about it. She was an employee originally, a wife, a mommy. She was also a homeowner. And when you look at all of the roles that you play, you start to see how they spin into almost a web. It's definitely not a hub and spoke, because it goes out much further than that. If you're a homeowner, that turns into a handy person, a project planner, a bookkeeper, all the things that go with a home. If you're a parent, oftentimes that turns into a coach, a driver, so many different things. So you get what I'm talking about? So write that down, the roles that you play. Then you want to look at your priorities. What are your priorities? And are you aligned with your priorities? List your top 5 priorities. And your top 1 or 2, you should be addressing every single day. I learned this and started thinking about this actually when I began dating a few years after my divorce. And I'd ask the guy, what are your top 5 priorities? Just sort of as an icebreaker. And then I started to notice they might say, oh, I belong to a gym. Oh, how often do you go? Oh, well, I never quite get there. Oh, well, what about eating? How do you eat? Well, and then I'd hear the story about drinking too much, maybe eating too much, and wanting to change diet, but never quite getting around to it. Well, if you're not doing your top priority every day, then what are you doing instead? And is that really your top priority if you're not? So are you in alignment? The third piece is to really look at yourself. To look at your inner beauty, I call it. But it has to do with your self-worth. And believe it or not, your self-worth translates directly into your bottom line and your feeling of security based on that. And the very, very first step of it is self-care. So any of the material that you may have read from me in the past, or if you signed up for a free report that I have, it starts really with looking at self-care. Every single person on this planet is actually beautiful. Every woman is beautiful. And I see the beauty when they're smiling and laughing and their eyes are twinkling. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes we're walking around with our shoulders maybe up and shrugged and tight and tense. And our eyes are down and we're not even looking at anybody because we're afraid one more thing will come at us. And instead, what really happens is if you tap into yourself and you're beautiful, then you start to attract everything that you would love. So those are 3 of the steps that we'll go over. We'll go over more. If you feel called, click the button below and you'll be able to start the virtual training. And also the 3-day seminar or workshop. I'll tell you about the price of it in a little bit, but it's really an investment in you. When do you take time for yourself? Once you start to know who you are inside from using these tools, then you start to understand the power that you have. And I was at a marketing seminar recently, and the word power was on a slide. And above the word power was a military tank. Well, that's not my idea of power. That's force. Power is different. And each of us has our own style of power. I like to think about it in terms of water. If you think of water and the word power, the first thing that comes to many people's minds is the image of a raging river. Certainly that's powerful. And in fact, we draw energy from water that lights our homes. But what about that trickling stream? If you're hiking and you hear a trickling stream, I don't know about you, but I go wandering looking for it. There's water here somewhere. And it draws my attention and it attracts me and I come to it. And if I happen upon a deep, still pool, I'll stop and move towards it and gaze into it. It attracts me as well. And every one of us has our own style. We just want to understand what it is. That's my wish for you. And that's why I've developed this formula. So go ahead and click the button if you'd like to get into it further. There's 7 steps to it. So the first ones I talked about were the roles that you play, your priorities. I didn't have really time to talk about your themes, but we'll get into it in the training, Feminine Power Flow. And then we talked about your inner beauty and self-care and the importance of that, and how that relates to self-worth and your money. And then there's power. And then from there, I want you to dream. And not to dream based on your circumstances, but to dream really, really big. One of my clients was at a job that she didn't like, and we started coaching. And we looked at these pieces. She didn't like the team she was working with. They were defensive and very hierarchical and strong pecking order. So first we started to define what kind of a team would she love? What kind of a work environment would she love? How would she like the rest of her life? She didn't like where she was living. She wanted to have time to go backpacking and take road trips. She loves exploring in the outdoors. So she started to define that. And she started to pay attention to how she was working and with her team. And how could she shift just the way she was asking questions so that they would feel her intent to support instead of her fear of making a mistake. That little shift made a big difference in her existing job. And as she started to step into that, she got a phone call from a former colleague out of the blue. There was a job opening at his company, and he thought she'd be perfect for it. She was just getting ready for a backpacking trip. She went on the backpacking trip, and the job was there, and the interview was still there. She got an offer for the job, double her salary with benefits. She was able to go on a cross-country trip. After her 3-month probation, she got an additional $4,000 on top of her doubled salary. And she moved to a really amazing apartment that she was eligible for herself, but she wanted a roommate. She has a roommate now. So she's early in her life. But I have another client that had bought with her husband a big Victorian to raise her children in 20 years ago with the thought of having a bed and breakfast someday. They're about they're 3 and 5 years respectively away from retirement. Their kids are grown. They've done some plumbing and electrical, but they never really got around to remodeling the house the way they had intended. After she came to the Feminine Power Flow event, in 10 months, they had the house painted, the gutters redone, the porch rebuilt in the front, custom lathed banisters, a porch built in the back that never existed, just a rickety staircase. They They cleared all the rooms. Their children were all grown now. They cleared all the stuff, told the kids, take it or we're dumping it. They put back just beautiful antiques that they had been collecting through the years, that they had been using. Stripped the floors, stripped paneling, repainted, repaired inner stairways, finished remodeling bathrooms. All of the things they dreamed of in 10 months. And I had conversations with both her and her husband. And he made a comment that he had to get into his MacGyver or his masculine energy to match her feminine energy. And together they did this, it's amazing, beautiful, beautiful, something they'd dreamed of and for years. If not now, when? Life is so short. So I'd love you to join me, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'll tell you about myself. I was raised to be a wife and a mommy, and I actually chose to go into corporate instead of my family business. I have a love of business because of my grandfather. But the boys went into the business, and I chose corporate. And even then, I thought, I want to have children and I want to get married. I still had this frame of reference that although I was working, that the man would be the primary income. That changed when my daughters were 3 and 5, and my husband was so stressed in his job that he ended up in the hospital and he nearly died. We were told, hope all your business is in order. In that moment, I knew that he was so sick because he was so stressed. And I knew that I could do it in a different way, and it opened me up to so many more possibilities. He lived. But I actually became the primary and only breadwinner for the remainder of raising our children and our marriage, which did end in divorce, ultimately. But I realized that I had something inside me, and I believe each and every one of us does. After 9/11, I left corporate, and I started doing business consulting to IT organizations about financial services because I knew all about it. Sarbanes-Oxley was coming out. There was all kinds of security issues, and I knew all about them because of my last job. And my kids wanted to do cooking, and we couldn't find anything, so I made something up, and that actually became a national company. But something was still, and I had a lot of fun with that. I traveled all over the country. I had military contracts. Who knew military contracts for teaching kids cooking? Every base has a youth center. And I have 8 trainers today, and I just got a new contract renewal. So what is possible for you? And I started thinking about that because I ran into so many people that were living small and didn't really know where they were going. We can't even get through airport security without a ticket and a destination. Yet we sometimes live through life, maybe with a dream out there somewhere. How do you start to make it come true today? We're told we have to make it first and then do what we want. Work first, work hard, We really could be so much more playful. I'm still learning this. But I'd like to gather a group of amazing women who are willing and open to explore this. And I know it's working. It's working for me, and it's working for women around me and my clients. So when I was doing consulting, I would charge up, the most I was ever charging was like $60,000 for going in and digging into the company and really getting everything straight. And we're not even talking about that. We're talking about a value for the workshop of $1997. That's $1,997. But because you're here and you're listening to this, if you're still listening, I know you're really interested. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. I have an event coming up March 4th, 5th, and 6th in Santa Rosa at the Flamingo Resort and Spa. It's a really cool place. And I'm looking to gather probably about 15 to 20 women to take time for yourself. Now, I know 3 days is really tricky sometimes, but this is important. When do you take time for you? So many times we have a to-do list that's a bazillion miles long. And what's the first thing to fall off? You. And that's if you've even put yourself on the to-do list. Because I know in the past when I was raising my kids, sometimes I didn't. But it's super important. We can't become all that we can be unless we take care of ourselves. And I've already explained how taking care of yourself relates to your self-worth and ultimately can relate to your bottom line. So I'd really like you to figure out how to come. And I have a payment plan, and I'm going to give you a discount, as I said. So let me tell you what else you get. I mentioned the virtual training. Well, I like to include virtual training as part of this package. It's 8 weeks of phone calls that are recorded so that you could listen to them when you can, or you can call in and we'll coach right there for 8 weeks. And it goes through the formula. Now you might think, why do I want to go through the formula and the virtual training and again at the workshop? Well, studies have shown that to sustain change or to change a habit, it takes repetition, 21 days. So by having the virtual training and the event, the 3 days, and you get to repeat it and review it, you'll get at deeper layers of it. And the other thing is, if you can only do one, you'll have the record. If you can only come to the event, you'll be able to do the work, and you'll have the recording, so if later you want to re-listen to them, you can. And if for some reason you really can't come to the event, you can listen to the recordings and still experience it. So either way, I want you to really do this. And the second way that you sustain change is through accountability. And I'm big on that. So for those of you who are coming to the event, the second bonus is a guest, an accountability partner. So let's review the value. The value of the event itself is $19.97. And we'll be doing work, using the tools that I've developed to really dig into yourself. And then we'll have discussions and exchanges about it. And this isn't about, oh, woe is me and everybody looking at problems. We're looking at possibilities. We're looking at forward moving goals and dreams. So, 1997 for the event, another 1997 for value for your guest, and we'll be doing the workshop, the virtual training, and that's valued at $997. So, what do you say? That's a total value of $497. $4,997. And what I'd like to offer it to you, I'd like to offer the early bird special of $497. That's a really great bargain for the three components. The training in person, the training virtually, and an accountability partner. So you get all the components. Now, if that's still a little tough for the money, I have a payment plan. So I'd love you to start right now, and if you're interested, click the button below. And if you would like a guarantee, I'll guarantee it. If you come to the event and you don't like it, I'll write you a check. I don't want you to do something you don't like when you get there. But I'll tell you, if you don't take action, things will probably stay the same. I've already told you about one of my clients who remodeled her entire house in 10 months that she'd been thinking of for 20 years. And I told you about another of my clients that got a job that doubled her salary with benefits. So different people are in different aspects of their life. There was another woman that came to the event that had been looking for a part-time job because she really was basically retired. Her husband had passed away. She wanted something to stimulate her and some extra spending cash. She had been looking for a part-time job for 2 years. She told me a couple of weeks after the event that she had a part-time job, and it was in a group that she loved. She said, I didn't realize I was volunteering in an organization that I love the people, and they had a job opening, and instead of just taking the job opening as it was, I defined how I could do the job part-time, and she got it. Now, people never think of it. She said, I never in a million years realized I could define the job. I thought I had to wait for the perfect job description for me. So I don't know what it's going to be for you, but I know if you come, it'll be great action. And many people have done a lot of inner work, but nobody's really doing this part of it where you're really, really digging into yourself so you know who you are. Because everything coming at you starts to get easier. Like, is it moving closer to your dream? Does it match your values and your priorities and your roles that you're playing right now? It's really, really amazing work. And I would love to join you. I have women that have told me, and you can listen to testimonials. I have one woman who came to my event recently, one of my last events, and she said, you know, I've done everything. She's done NLP, she's done hypnotic, she's gone to business conferences, all kinds of heart-based stuff. She says, you're doing something really, really unique, and it's such an excellent foundational piece. So if you're interested at all, those of you who are, I just click the button below and register and find a friend to join you. And even if you can't come to the live event, the virtual training in and of itself is worth the cost of admission. So go ahead and click the button. I look forward to meeting you. Those of you I know, I look forward to seeing you again.